record. And then I can do my usual stop my share. I can start greeting everyone. I'll spotlight myself, and I'm going to spotlight my colleague, Tim Thompson. All right, greetings, everyone. I'm Joel. Welcome to the weekly briefing. That time of the week, we pause to reflect on what's going on, look at the latest trends, talk about some of the hot button issues that are going on. Joined by my illustrious, eminent colleague down the hall, Mr. Tim Thompson. Say hi.
It's good to be with you all today. It's funny because Joel and I are never really in the same area at the same time, but today we are, but we realized we have to touch our computers to talk about bingo cards, so we had to separate for this presentation. So sorry we can't be sitting elbow to elbow, but we still are equally, we're equally still attached.
Yeah, I'm gonna come photobomb you at some moment, so everyone knows that it's actually real. We're in Los Angeles together. Well, welcome everyone. This week, we're picking up this topic, continuing from last week, where we talked about stirring up January sales, because January is always a bit of a weird month for creative studios. And Tim, the concept for this week is this goofy thing we call the sales bingo card, right? So I'll just set it up this way. Last week, we all agreed, we always start the new year as a creative business owner with these goals called, this year, we're going to do X million dollars in revenue. And it takes a minute to kind of get things started in January and get things rolling. But there's some other challenges, I think, that we face in our mindset. So Tim, that's my setup for you to tell us what in the world does bingo have to do with sales?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if you want to show, maybe we could just even explain why we call it the bingo card and what bingo is.
You got it.
But it's a concept I actually had when Joel, you and I were in Toronto talking to Garris, and we were breaking down what was necessary for him and his sales team to set up their annual goal. And we started building out this grid, recognizing that the grid had finite amount of squares in it, much like a bingo card. And as those of you know who play bingo, it's very simple. When the number is called, you basically mark the square, and that square is taken, it's done, it's filled in. The idea in bingo is to build a pattern that you know that you win. And that same idea came to us as we're building out this sales chart to say, hey, there's a matrix that we can work with to recognize there's a finite amount of work we want to do in each category. We don't want to just spend the entire year doing $25,000 a year projects. We want to do some projects that evolve it to 50,000 or 100,000, or might even be in different categories of like, only a certain amount of broadcast clients. We want to do some film clients. We want to do some commercial clients. And building out that grid reminded us of this bingo card of, we can build a plan using this matrix and filling in those goals, how much we're willing to work within those categories, and get an overall global picture of whatever revenue projection could be if we did that. So we created this bingo card.
So the thought, of course, I'll say is also this. And I have a little diagram I'll show, but if I'll tell a story, Tim. How about this? Because I remember there was a year when when I was running Impossible Pictures, we had a really good year. I think it was 4 million. And I remember in January sitting down with my team. I thought I was being helpful. In hindsight, I wasn't. Right? Because they said, this year is going to be even better than last year. We're going to do 4.4 million or 4.8 or something, right? And then I said, that just means every month we need to generate $400,000 of revenue. And my producer, my executive producer, my operations person, like everyone just looked at me like, what the hell are you even saying? But I think even more so, everyone was kind of looking around the room like, well, who's going to do that? And how would we even do that? Like, I have no conception, because we were doing jobs that were, 30, 40, 50,000, sometimes 100, sometimes 200 on a good day. And then when you tell somebody, okay, do 400 every month, otherwise we're going to fail to hit our goal, they just were like, I don't know what to do with that. And everyone was kind of freaking out. So here's my little diagram I found from, I think this is like a Michael Hyatt graphic that I really like. It's super simple, right? Here's this big goal. And you say, oh, I just got to make this leap from A to B. And you're like, I'll never make it. But if you chunk it down and you say, well, it's actually like, I got to just jump on this lily pad to this lily pad to this lily pad. I've got this. So there's this mental, if you chunk it down, you realize it's actually what you've been doing all along. But now you're creating something that's actionable. So that's kind of the thing I experienced.
We actually know where our work comes from. It's not a mystery to us. If we've been in business for a while, we can even name our clients. We know the projects that they work on. We know why we're often called, and we actually know the projects we've been passed on because we're familiar with our clients, we're familiar with the industry, and we're familiar with our competitors and the work that we're doing out there. So for me, it's just recognizing, because we know that, how do we manage our expectations against what our knowledge is? And then how do we actually game that thing? How do we build a plan to grow in those categories or in that revenue to get to the goal that we have? Because we all start a year with a certain revenue goal, as well as like types of projects, stretch clients that we know that we'd want to go after and love to do work with. How do we actually get there? And so this mapping system allows us to get it out of our brain and into something that seems feasible, a few short steps from one lily pad to the other, and we can achieve our goal.
I like to use the word game right there, because you're right. Once you turn it into a game, and here I'll show what this thing actually looks like, because we drop this into a sheet. Now, for members of yeah, I was going to say, for members of Confab and some of our other clients, I know this is, you've already seen this because we've been talking about this for the past few weeks. So this is our moment to say, hey, everyone else has been talking about this. Here it is. Nothing super magical, but in a way it kind of is magic, because if this is my blank bingo card, and you'll notice here, what do I have? Basic jobs, interesting jobs, noteworthy jobs, groundbreaking jobs, and then over the top jobs. This, of course, is just language we made up. But these jobs tend to be in the average of 20K revenue, 40, 80, 120, 250. Well, if I go in and just say, gosh, let's look at what we did last year, and I fill this in, I might say, well, gosh, we did, you know, a 20K job for CNN, for TBWA, for Uber, for TBWA, A&E, and Facebook. And then we did these jobs for these clients, and so on. It's amazing how, wow, if my goal was a 2 million a year, I'm already at 2.2 million just by filling out my bingo card. So now I'm looking at it and saying, it's actually very actionable. In fact, I know this job tends to happen in August. You know, these type of jobs tend to happen once a quarter. These people are all located in this certain city. So when I do a sales trip, I'm going to go talk to all of those people, et cetera. So what else is your advice here, Tim?
Yeah,
how else would you leverage this?
The example you're showing also is a very intentional limitation. We actually only have a finite amount of rows. I can fill in a whole bunch of people in that far B column because it's low-hanging fruit, it's easy to convert, but you basically sabotage or compromise your company by taking on too many projects in the left side of the category and not give yourself room and capability to do these larger projects and the pitches necessary and the timeline necessary to get those projects done. So filling up that bingo card isn't great. When we do our quarterly reports and annual briefings with our clients, we spend a lot of time on this idea of the 80-20 principle. Like, how much revenue does the majority of your work come from? And we often find that it comes from a handful of people. About 20% of the people we work with give us 80% of our revenue. So why don't we just map out 80% of our revenue first, and then know that there's some capability, and to fill it in on the far left column, no, let's limit our ability to take on new work, like a bingo card. Once it's filled in, it's done. You can't go spend it anymore. You have to go find other categories to win the game. And it pushes people to the far right of the bingo card.
So are you saying, if I think I heard you right, are you saying that once I've gotten these 20K jobs, for example, don't go get a bunch more 20K jobs, because until I've gotten my Apple or my Facebook at 250, I have more work to do?
Yeah, because you're not achieving those Apple, Facebook goals if you keep on going back to A&E and doing 6 or 7 more of those projects. Those 6 projects take on more, actually 1 or 2 projects in the $20,000 field might not last as long as a Facebook project, but the goals that you have to accomplish or the work that you have to accomplish is the same work. So the execution of the work is the same. Might as well land one client, larger revenue, give yourself some breathing room and execute all the deliverables with only one client to talk to instead of 6 different clients to talk to. Yeah. So it's getting out of the thought of like every job is equal, all jobs are good. Jobs are good, but you have to start categorizing them and limiting one side in order to grow on the other side.
Yeah, it's that.
And we're currently talking about dollar values across the bingo field, but you could also do this by industry. You can also do this by verticals, where the verticals actually are different ways of thinking of it, of like entertainment industry or tech ad agency. You can fill in that same thought process here by recognizing there are certain categories I'm killing it in, but I want to grow in new categories. And how do I fill in those gaps and start change them at bingo card, not just specific clients, but maybe even category.
Yeah, because my brain would even gap out a bit. Like, wow, we did this amazing job, say 250 last year for Apple. I got to go get another one from Apple. It's like, well, no, get it from the tech space because you clearly know how to do that. And are there other players in that space that might be a fit? Well, sure, there's a bunch. So now my mind is open to other possibilities.
Yeah, and you can imagine, and we didn't do it here, but we have dollars across the top. You can do verticals going down and then start filling in $20,000 in tech would come from this company, $100,000 in tech would come from this company, and even be able to grid this thing out. The key here is to be able to get something out of your mind that's translatable, that creates specific goals and specific targets, because that's how you're going to actually achieve your goal, is you're going to identify specific targets to go after and achieve it piece by piece. It's also something that as you're mastering the sales ingredient with your team and you're the business owner trying to pass this on to your sales team, you can collaborate, work with them and create specific targets. And now their pipe drive doesn't look crazy with every possible person. Like, I talked to somebody that owns a billboard company and these people, wrap cars. Like, well, sure, there's design in that, but there's nothing in my world that matches that. Let's keep those categories specific of how we're going to grow, or give one person a bingo card in one way, a different person a bingo card in a different way, because those salespeople have different contacts, ability, and knowledge. They're going to help you create outreach that grows differently. So you can actually master sales very easily by visualizing it on the bingo card, translating that into your system, Pipedrive, or whatever your HubSpot, whatever those goals are, and then measuring the results with your team and saying, hey, you know what, you've already did 3 of those favor projects where that big part of the bingo card is filled out.
Right.
So are those investments being returned? Go get ROI from those investments that you convinced me to do, and help me start filling in these other categories on my card.
I was just thinking about how if you say are the principal and responsible for sales, or you have a salesperson and you're staring at that, okay, I got to do 4.4 million or 2.2, whatever that is this year. Yeah, it does create a mindset called, oh my gosh, I just need to call everybody and get whatever I can as fast as I can. Because it's just like, I don't know how to chunk it down. And I like the idea here that, like, in the spirit of sales keeping, meaning what's the minimum system we can keep going to generate sales with no matter how busy we get throughout the year. Then taking the bingo card, and once you've kind of got it filled out, you can go into something like Pipedrive, whatever your pipeline is, and create reminders called, okay, at this time of the year is when we're going to start reaching out to those, to these bingo chips, right? These actual opportunities that we had last year, we think we're going to do again this year. But it creates some sort of schedule and strategy to it, rather than just, oh my gosh, in order to get 4 million, I just have to hustle and take anything and everything as fast as I can.
Yeah, I know that there are stages that we go through in running a business where if you're in $1 million a year company, 2 million is a great stretch goal for you. And it might take you a few years to go from 1 million to 2 million, to double your business. But what happens is that you start to realize that you don't ever go below $1 million once you cross that threshold. And it seems like very flexible. Between 1 million and 2 million seems very flexible. But once you hit 2 million, you rarely go below 2 million again, because you've mastered something, you've achieved a certain goal. And this visibility on this bingo card is some of where that comes from. You start recognizing you've crossed over into a new category of client or new category of project. And that's why you're now a $2 million business. You're in a new field and you've crossed over into it. And so it's easier now that I'm into that field to start gaining other clients and doing other work there. And then that $2 million growth to get to 4 million feels the same way. Very kind of mushy and flexible between 2 and 4 million. But once you cross 4 million, it's hard to go back because we're looking for that next growth strategy. So for me, this last bingo card is the one, my clients I work with that are 9 million, 10 million, 15 million, $20 million a year, to try to look at their project at scale, we build a bingo card that looks something like this. And what we're able to do here is plug in the number of projects that you can imagine doing. So how many $25,000 projects to deliver in a month? And you might say, well, I deliver one a week to make that happen. And then I deliver, two $50,000 projects. And I don't really deliver $100,000 and $200,000 projects on a monthly basis, but I do deliver two of these a quarter. And really, truly, like I could deliver maybe one of these, one additional one of those a quarter. So all of a sudden now, look at the number of projects necessary. This is only 9 projects, and you're at $40 million a year. That's how companies at scale get to 4 million. But if you're at 10 million, you can start recognizing that, honestly, there's on an annual basis, I do 3 of these instead of just one of those a quarter. And I do 3 of these here. So I can get that same 4 million, right? Playing it this way. And then I ask them, well, what if we stretched it? What if we added 1 more of these a quarter? What if we were able to add, besides this, this would be 24 projects at $50,000. What if we just added 1 more of those or 2 more of those annually? How do we start recognizing like 1 or 2 stretches in a semi-annual basis or quarterly basis? It can easily start to grow my company that not everything is built on a month-by-month schedule to get there. And by simply just creating a few more stretch goals here, you can easily grow your business into $6 million by just taking on another, in this case, this is 19 projects. And I know a lot of companies that do 24 to 30 projects a year, but they're doing them in this $25 to $50,000 category. And here is 19 similar deliverables. There's 19 deliverables, 19 clients you have to talk to. Imagine that, only putting 19 names on a list. And with 19 names on your list, you can achieve $6 million, and trying to go after 50 people on the list to get to $3 million. So this right here, I find when I'm working with sales folks at scale, we could start filling out these numbers and ask them, do you really think it's capable of delivering 4 of these a month, 2 of these a quarter, and so on, and get that scale that we're looking for?
And Tim, I'm wondering if there's anybody here listening that's actually started going through this exercise that wouldn't mind chiming in, just maybe how it's impacting their planning, their mindset, that sort of thing. So if that's you, raise your hand. We'd love to hear from you. So Tim, we should share this thing, right? Because we've shared this with a lot of the people inside Confab and a few other places. So this is just a good reminder to myself. I'm going to go find the link and I will share it here, because this is something you can download, make a copy of it, play with it, right? Just hack away at it, see if it maybe gives you an insight or a thought. All right, so bear with me.
Yeah, work with your team with it. What we're trying to do is get the ideas out of people's heads, right? That's what we're trying to do is, when you imagine the year, how do you imagine it? And going back to that initial graphic, Joel, you have when you say, could you do $1 million this year to your salesperson? They might go, but I can't make promises and we really don't know. And you hear the same verbiage from salesperson to salesperson year to year, as if we're saying to them, you have to make a promise that you're going to get this. Like, we know that already, but how would I get to $1 million, or how would you get to $1 million? To say, like, don't you think you could find 5 $20,000 projects within every 6 months? So it's delivering a little bit less than 1 a month for 6 months. Oh yeah, I could do that. So then you can probably do 10 in a year. Oh yeah, I could do that 10 in a year. Okay, cool, let's plug that in. Like all of a sudden we're at $250,000, and that was easy for you. Do you think you can find 4 $50,000 projects? Yeah, okay, cool. Now you're at $600,000, and we're barely even getting started. I might even ask you to go after some major goal, and you're 3/4 of the way through your objectives for the year. That's how your team starts to understand, like, oh, I actually do know how to roadmap my thoughts into achievable goals.
You're reminding me of this moment. I remember one of the first times I sat on a cash board call with you, and we were looking at the cash flow, right, for one of our clients going out, I think 12 weeks or something. And you were saying to the salesperson, hey, I want you to notice 6 weeks from now, I need a $20,000 project just to fill this one gap. And then 12 weeks from now, we need an 80. Can you get those? And it's funny how the salesperson was like, I know exactly who I'll call. And that was like incredibly powerful, as opposed to just saying, just go get me projects. Go. I need $4 million this year. What are you doing? Get busy.
Give me as much as you can, as often as possible. Go. Well, then I am giving you as much as I can as often as possible. But how do I know, like, what my, if I was achieving anything? No, I did the best I could, right? That's how those are the words we use. And we're like, no, I don't know. I don't want the best you could. What I want is, can you give me an $80,000 project in the next 3 months? If you can, if you don't know where that comes from, is it 3 months a long enough period to do that? Do you need 4 months for that? Do you need 5 months for that? What would those targets look like? How would we go from our current contacts to future contacts to get us into that realm? Do I have to pitch something? Do I have to update the website? Can I do a different type of project to get us in the room? And you can start strategizing and shortening that bridge, making the gap smaller and smaller, so that we can actually, like, oh, this is actually easy. Now that we've kind of churned the field, we planted the seeds, now we can kind of harvest when we need it.
Yep. Well, this is fun. It's kind of cool, and I think in a way this is tapping into a bit of the vibe I'm sensing just in the community, that a lot of people are starting the new year. They have this big goal, and now I hope this is almost a hack, right? It's one of those little tools to help you,
total hack.
You're right, convert it into something that's actionable, something that's simple, something that you can also put into a container like a sales pipeline, and know that as you go throughout the year, you've got some sort of a scorecard, right? Like that's a word you use often.
Yeah, I've also found this to be like a converter. It's a total hack, but when you have your production roll-up, and you have your pipe drive, and you have your factors report, right? You have these 3 major categories, and we take our splits and put them into the roll-up, and we can take sales and put that over here. But the bingo card is this one where we can start, it's a kind of a middle ground conversation we can have of to say, hey, now that I'm looking forward into Q1 of 2022, I have a sense of where that work's going to come from. We're halfway through January already. There's only really 10 weeks left into Q1. I'm pretty sure I can identify the clients I'm going to work with in the next 10 weeks. It should be very obvious to me from my pipe drive or my roll-up of who I'm going to talk to and how it's going to play out. So right now already I can take those numbers and plug them into a grid like this and get a sense of how my annual is going to do. And now I have something for my factors report to look at and say, oh, if my annual is going to look that way, I would spend this money. Oh, I don't have enough revenue to pay for the expenses that I see in my indirect costs to cover this. Awesome. Go back to that bingo card. What additional items do you need to fill in to make your revenue goal? So those indirect items are covered and your lifestyle is covered, and those big picture growth goals are being covered and financed by you and the decisions you're making.
Well, we should maybe turn a corner here because we got about 5 minutes left. So I shared the link there. You'll see a chat for that Google Doc. So if you want to download that and play with it, that's there for you to enjoy. Feel free to, start a thread in the community if you find it helpful or maybe completely useless. We'll see what benefit you get from it. Tim, I do want to mention to everybody here that next week the briefing is going to take a bit of a different tact because we're going to do our annual industry metrics. So we're going to be sharing with all of you what's going on in the industry from the highest level, like what's the average trend we're seeing with revenue, sales that companies are generating, the average profitability, our budget's going up or down, our costs of labor and talent going up or down. And so sharing those trends, I think, is going to be really valuable. But the important thing for you to know is it'll be a different link next week. It'll require registration. And most importantly, we're not going to record that conversation. So there will be no replay. So if you miss it, you miss it. So just make sure that it's on your calendar and that you get to join in.
Yeah, and just for clarity there, the reason we're doing that is we're not pulling proprietary information. We're not giving away anyone's secrets or taking data that people have asked us not to share. But we recognize from where we sit in the hundreds of millions of dollars worth of projects we're doing that there are certain trends that you're looking at. So we can just point to the trends, recognize the growth, the ups and downs of the curves, and give everyone a sense of where they might be fitting in the trends that are happening, and possibly some advice to move forward. So we'll be looking at big picture trends, some growth objectives, how you might be competing with or comparing to other people in your segment of the industry, and just give a big picture like health objectives of how the industry is doing, what we're looking forward to 2022, and the growth opportunities that are there for each person.
Yeah, you might remember last year it was the topic, how do my numbers compare, right? Like, how am I doing compared to other creative firms my size, right? Or in my vertical, in my specialty, that sort of thing. So I think that'll be a really good conversation. By the way, I should mention, Robin, I noticed you have a question about your profile being deactivated. So make sure you get in touch with Connor at revthink.com and he'll get you sorted out. We have been making some changes to the community about making sure that people that are there are participating and qualified and all that kind of stuff. So make sure you just connect with Connor to get that straightened out. Anyone else have a comment, question, whatever, before we run out of time here in 2 minutes?
Just that this thing has been helpful.
Oh, has it? So you're one of our guinea pigs, right, Nico?
Yeah, super helpful.
Chunking it down and making it like, oh, okay, actionable.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Well, thanks for jumping in and sharing that that very concise bit of feedback. You're awesome. All right. Well, thanks everyone.
It is fun to do with business owners when we sit down with business owners and work on projects like this, because it's trapped inside of our mind, right? We kind of know the answers, but it's kind of just trapped up there. So I get a chance to sit with Nico and say, hey, let's just talk about what do you already know? And then to just take a moment, kind of shift your brain into that other analytical brain, and then be able to get that information out of you, a place to capture that, to start gritting it out so you can, it's measurable. It's that conversion is always kind of fun. So yeah, Nico, I agree. It's helpful. Good catch, Ned.
All right, well, let's wrap up and give everyone a minute back to their day so you can go respond to an email or something before your next call starts. Yeah, thank you, Nico, for being here. Tim, thanks for sharing this little crazy concept we called the sales bingo card.
Sounds great to me. We'll see you next week, my friend. And just so everyone know, we exist so you can thrive business, life, and career. So please feel free to reach out to us. Let us know any way we can help you, and in community, participate and share with one another. It's one of the greatest tools that we have out there is the minds of all your minds working together. So we appreciate you being part of this journey with us, and we'll see you next week.
Yeah, if you want to learn more about the roadmap to your thriving creative firm, you can always go to revthink.com/start, and we'll put you in touch with somebody who can help. Until next week, we'll see you all next week for the industry metrics and how your numbers compare. So thanks everyone for being here. Bye, Tim.
Bye, Joel.